إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. O you who believe, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as he should be feared and die not except in a state of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear respected brothers and sisters. Before I begin, I just want to apologize beforehand for any mistakes, if there are any. I did my research, reliable sources, went over it with a few people, so just please forgive me if there are any mistakes. There were a group of tabi'een who were sitting together. And a tabi'een is someone who did not see the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They saw the Sahaba. So there was a group of tabi'een and they were sitting together. And one of them said to the others, and this is in my own words, he said, imagine if we lived in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imagine what kind of people we would have been. What kind of change we could have brought to society. Standing by the side of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the reason I mention this, the reason I bring this story up is because I don't know about you all, but I've heard this narrative before. And I've participated in it myself. With comments such as, if I were alive back then, I'd be such a better person, such a better Muslim. If I was standing by the side of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the reality is, the fact of the matter is, how do I know that I wouldn't have been one of the opposers of Islam? One of the people who opposed the message. So after the Tabi'in, one of the Tabi'in said, he made those statements, a Sahaba who was sitting close by, he wasn't a part of the group, but he was sitting close enough to overhear. And a Sahaba is obviously someone who was there with the Prophet ﷺ, who saw him. And so he turned around and he looked at the Tabi'in and he said, "You have no idea what you're talking about. You wanting to have to live back then, you don't know what you're talking about. Because being a companion of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was not an easy task. It wasn't a walk in the park. When you stood by the side of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, it meant that you had to put your life on the line every single day. There were sacrifices that had to be made for you to be a companion of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So this mindset of us, I don't know about you all once again, but me, for thinking that way, thinking that I would have been a better person back then. We need to get out of this false narrative. Because it does more damage than good. Because what we have to realize, the lesson that I take from this story, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a time. We want change, we want to make change, but we think the only way for us to have made any change is if we were born 1400 years ago. But no. The reality is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us today to make a change. Here in 2016, this is our time to implement Islam within our lives and to behave as Muslims. Now I want to go back to the early life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not much is known before prophethood, before he received revelation, but there are a few events that we do know. And scholars say that it was around the age of 15, around the age of 15, where the Prophet ﷺ participated in these events. These events were known as the Fijar Wars, the Evil Wars. And basically, I'm just going to briefly sum up these events. What happened was that a person from the tribe of Kinana, which is a sub-tribe of Quraysh, a person from that tribe killed someone from the tribe of Hawazin. Now, obviously, in anger and seeking a retribution and retaliation, the tribe of Hawazin, they attacked the Kinana. And in fear, the tribe of Kinana, they retreated to the sanctuary of the Haram. Even before the time of Islam, within the boundaries of the Haram, you could not harm someone. It was a sacred place. So when the tribe of Kinana retreated there, they thought that this would hold true and they wouldn't be attacked there. But the tribe of Hawazin, they continued forward and attacked them within the Haram. So these events went back and forth for a little while. It lasted for a little while, for a brief time, until eventually a treaty was signed. But the main point that I want us to understand about this story is that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at the age of 15, before prophethood, he participated in these events. A young man, at the age of 15, participated in these events. He did not actively fight, but his role within those battles was to retrieve the arrows from the battleground and take it back to his tribe, to the tribe of Quraysh, to his uncle, to his fellow companions. That was his role within the events of the Fijar Wars. Later on in the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's life, and this is the important part, an important statement that he made, this was after revelation, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he told his companions, he said, I do not regret having participated in those events, having participated in those wars. So I want us to kind of keep that statement in mind. And fast forward about 5 or so years. Once again, the age is somewhat irrelevant because some scholars say it was early 20s, some say it was at the age of 20, but nonetheless, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he was a part of another set of events. These were known as the Hilf al-Fudul or Hilf al-Mutayyibin. So what happened in these events was that there was a man from Yemen, from the tribe of Zubayr in Yemen, and he came to perform Hajj. So he came to Mecca, and on his way there he met a merchant, and he sold a few items to this merchant. And then the merchant told him, go perform Hajj, and then come back and I'll have your money ready for you. So, the man from Yemen, he said, okay, that's fine. And he performed Hajj, came back, and the man, the merchant, once again, he said, come back tomorrow and I'll have your money back. So, second time, the man, leaves and then he comes back the next day, and once again, the man said, come back tomorrow and I'll have your money, I promise. So this went on for a little while, for a few more times. And this man from Yemen, he obviously got fed up. So he went to the other tribes, the Quraysh, the Bani Hashim, but none of them helped him. Why? Because the merchant was from one of their own tribes. He was from one of the tribes of Makkah. So they did not want to, even though he was the one who was causing the oppression, they did not want to stand up against him because he was an influential member of that society and he was from one of their own tribes. So they said they turned away from the man from Yemen. Now, the individual who was seeking justice, he wrote a poem. And at that time, to settle disputes, that's one of the things that you did. And he recited this poem in front of the Kaaba on one of the social gatherings, on the day of one of the social gatherings in Makkah. And then he says, O family of Fihr, O family of Quraysh, I have been wronged and I asked you all for help, but none of you helped me because the merchant is from one of your own. I am from Yemen and I have no kin here. I have no family here, so I can't protect myself. And you all have chosen to ignore me. And he basically goes on to call them cheaters and liars. And this news eventually got back to one of the leaders of Mecca, Zubayr ibn Muttalib, one of the uncles of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And being an influential member of society at that time, he gathered the other elders, the other leaders of Mecca, into the house of Abdullah ibn Judan. And once again, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, at the age of 20, before Revelation, he was a member of this gathering. And in this gathering, they signed a treaty. The treaty stated that no longer will we ignore oppression. We will stand up against oppression, against injustice, even if it means that we have to stand up against our own people. So we will stand by the oppressed against the oppressor, even if the oppressor is from our own tribe. And this was a significant treaty at that time, a significant step forward. The Prophet ﷺ, he was one of the members who signed the treaty. And later on in prophethood, after Revelation, he told his companions, he said, if I were asked to uphold that treaty, the Treaty of Judan, even today, in the day of Islam, I would do so. And I would not give up my spot in that gathering, even for 100 red camels. It's an expensive price. Basically, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ valued that gathering, that treaty so much that he would not give it up for anything. So what can we learn from these two instances? Scholars say that there are two very important points for us to take away from these two events. The first point is that not all of the movements, not all of the causes that we stand up for have to be on a religious basis. Because when you look at the Fajjar Wars and the Hilf al-Fudud, Hilf al-Mutayyibin events, you'll realize that they were not fought on the basis, on the foundations of religion. Because both sides were pagans. This was before the time of Islam. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, at the age of 15 and 20, he participated in these events because it was his obligation as a member of society. If you want to change society, you have to be a member of it, an active member. So, scholars say that the lessons that we can learn from these two events, especially from the Fajjar Wars and the Treaty of Judan, is that we have to stand up for justice and against oppression, no matter where it occurs. Because that was the main point of the Treaty of Judan. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in numerous places in the Quran tells us that it is our obligation as Muslims, as human beings, to stand up for justice, no matter who it is, no matter where, to stand up against oppression, I apologize. Stand up against oppression, no matter who it is against, and no matter where it is. And to put this in context, when we look at the current state of events, one of the prime examples of current movements that comes to mind is the Black Lives Matter movement. And why is this movement important to us as Muslims? Well, first of all, it's important because we have our African American brothers and sisters here in Lexington, here in the U.S. And Dr. Bagby, he gave a khutbah last week about this, about the importance of what the African Americans have brought to Islam in the U.S. So when we look at the event in the early life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, we'll see that he stood up for justice at the young age of 15 and 20. He stood up against oppression, no matter who it was, no matter even if the person was from his tribe. And that's the important thing for us to take away from these events. That's the first point. Now, the second point, scholars say, is that we have to understand that it is our obligation to be active members of society. Because once again, at a young age, even before revelation, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was already participating, was already active in society. He had established himself as an influential member of society, being one of the people who signed the Treaty of Judan. So scholars say that the second lesson that we can learn from these events is that we have to be active members. And just bringing this down to the local level here in Lexington, what are some ways that we can participate? What are some ways that we can be active in our society? You have the Share Center. Recently, I'm sure you've all heard this numerous times, a free clinic was established at the Share Center by young adults here in Lexington at UK. This is something we can participate in. And then the Share Center itself, the amazing things, the amazing services that they provide. These are activities, these are organizations that we can be a part of. The lunch service that they provide on Saturday to the homeless. The Hope Center. On Mondays, Sister Sabura with other MSA members, they volunteer at the Hope Center to provide food for the homeless or whoever else that needs it. These are ways for us as Muslims here in America, especially in the current climate, how things are going, the current rise of Islamophobia. These are ways for us to show